of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip-hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go. For free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Sit back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping Sports with M3, right here on All Noise Radio.
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Place with best sports talk and news surrounding each game.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey man, this time I'm gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything's going well for you here on this Monday, the 22nd day of July for 2019. How's it going out there? Everyone doing well? Everyone trying to get through this ridiculously hot time of the year? I mean, hey, it could be worse. We were complaining a month ago about the fact that it was raining every day. Now we got to deal with this heat wave. But, you know, there are things that will get us through it, things to entertain us, and I hope to do that for you for the next, about hour or so that I'm on here. A lot to talk about this week with us being now 9 days away from the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Go through some thoughts as far as teams that are buyers, teams that are sellers, players that could be available, especially on the pitching side of things for some of these contenders. Although you really can't rule anybody out as far as a contender right now with how jam-packed the wild card is in both the AL and the NL, but give you some thoughts on that a little bit later. Gonna mix in some football as well. Probably gonna start with that as well, especially because there hasn't been much talk as when it comes to the NFL side. That the NFL hasn't had much of the attention in recent weeks just due to the NBA postseason and NBA free agency. I mean, hell, the most attention that there's been given to the NFL is when it's come to off the field stuff with free agency. NBA's free agency has been treated as a more popular, polarizing story. And the only time that the NFL really got any traction was this past week, because you didn't have any trades to announce in the NBA. The only thing that was really relevant going on is LeBron James trending on Instagram just for the fact that he wanted to let everyone know. No, it's not LeBron. It is not Taco Tuesday, but I appreciate your contributions to the show. First contributions that you've had of any sort to the public in about 8 months now. Maybe want to concentrate more on winning games starting this October. But, hey, I'm sure the Lakers will be in fine shape. But, think about it. When it comes to the NFL, this is the last week that we are going into until next February, in which there won't be an NFL game at some point during that week. And it's July 22nd, as I said, last week that we have to go without football until after February 2nd of next year, because you do have preseason games, believe it or not, getting underway in just a span of about 10 days from now, with the Hall of Fame game taking place on August the 1st between the Falcons and the Broncos. And from there, everybody gets started with preseason games a week after that. And I know preseason is always referred to, at least by me, as non-alcoholic beer, but still, it's football. We haven't had football in our lives in 5 months other than the off-the-field stuff, whether it be comments made by certain players, whether it be the free agent moves made in the month of March. But in the last couple of days, the NFL has started to trend a little bit higher. And a lot of that has to do with what is probably, how should I put this, the most hyped up team, most talked about team in the NFL coming into this season. A team that historically has not done anything. A team that has not won a championship in who knows when. Hell, hasn't even made the postseason in decades. But that would be the Cleveland Browns, who all off season have been garnering headlines, garnering talk with the moves that they have made, with the hiring of a new head coach, making the shocker back on Tuesday, March the 12th, when they acquired Odell Beckham Jr. from the New York Giants. And now they are just once again putting themselves out there on Front Street, putting themselves out there in a spot where, if they don't win games, if they don't have success this year, and by win games, I don't mean going 7-8-1 again. I mean winning double-digit games and being a postseason team. Everyone's going to be, and their mother's going to be talking trash about them, and everyone's going to be out there pointing the finger, ripping this team. They started with the comments in the middle of last week when you had Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield comment about how much more beloved Odell Beckham Jr. was now going to be, the fact that he is playing in Cleveland, saying that, the fans are going to actually show up here. He's going to feel so much more of the love. In fact, I'm bringing up the comment up right now, what he said. But it's, quite honestly, it's just a bad look if you're going to throw these comments out there about Odell and commenting against Giant fans, saying Brown fans will embrace Odell Beckham, unlike the Giants fans, which is on the surface a ridiculous statement. I know there was always a lot of chatter amongst media and fans calling into sports radio in New York City about Odell Beckham's off-the-field antics. But on the field, the Giant fans love this guy. Giant fans, this is a guy that they would rush to the shops to buy his jerseys. They would love the things that he posted on social media. The only real knock that a lot of Giant fans ever had against him was when he did that interview last October on ESPN with Josina Anderson and was ripping Eli Manning. But Mayfield will go and say that he's here to work. He wants to be surrounded by people who love and support him and allow him to be himself. He's here to play in front of fans who actually care, who actually show up to every game and pack the stadium and love him for who he is. I'm sorry. Even though the Giants have been bad in recent years, been bad the last 6 years, and only made one playoff appearance during Odell's time, they still went to the games every week. When you talk about fan bases in the tri-state area, the New York area in specifically, there's no more loyal fan base than the New York Giants. There's, other than, I would say, maybe the Rangers. Giant fans, even in the years when they've been lousy, have still packed the stadium. I mean, hell, remember the support they threw behind Eli Manning 2 years ago when he got benched, and mostly that was benched not because they were going to put a young kid in there, in Davis Webb, but he got benched by his head coach and replaced, of all people, by Geno Smith. And the coach had the nerve to say that, oh, Geno gives us the best chance to win. That's loyalty right there. That's showing support. Hell, they even showed loyalty behind Odell after his bad performance against the Packers in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So Baker needs to calm it down with these comments. But then today tops the scales. Today is what really, if you're a Giant fan, now turns you against Odell. And if you're a football fan, unless you're the diehard of diehards when it comes to Cleveland Browns faithful, you're going to be rooting for the Browns to fall flat on their face this coming season. Because Odell Beckham did an interview with GQ that was made public earlier this morning. It will be publicized in August. And he talked a lot about his time with the Giants and his reaction to getting traded to the Cleveland Browns, and saying that he felt disrespected, that he said could never get past my past. Saying, and I quote, like, after everything I've done for them, this, to me, be honest, this team has not been good the last 6 years, period. Even the year we went to the playoffs, everyone was talking about this and that. We went there. I didn't have a great playoff game. Don't get me wrong. I had a terrible game, but I left the game with 7 targets. I'm supposed to be your number one receiver. I left the game with 7 targets. We lost. They scored 40 points. It's all just bad. There's so much there. I don't even know where to get started. Number one, you felt disrespected? How about all the times you disrespected the franchise and the jersey? Whether it be the aforementioned interview ripping Eli Manning last October, or it be when you were throwing a hissy fit on the sidelines and knocking over the kicking net, or on the times when teammates such as Saquon Barkley would have 50-plus yard touchdown runs, and you look totally disinterested on the sidelines because it wasn't you that was scoring that touchdown. It wasn't you that was making the big play. Or you want to bring up the playoff game. Let's go to that. Yeah, you had 7 targets, but you had at least 5 drops in that game. All right? You were as big a reason why they lost the game, and maybe you wouldn't have gotten so heavily criticized for that loss in the game if the fact that you weren't on a boat with your teammates in Miami partying 5 days before that game. You put yourself out there for criticism and the right to be knocked when you're doing foolish things like that. And he would go on to say, I felt disrespected because I felt like I was the main reason at keeping the brand alive. They were getting primetime games still as an 11-5 team. Why? Because people want to see the show. You want to see me play. I'm sorry, the Giant brand existed long before you. The Giants have been around way longer than you've been on this earth. saying that you felt disrespected, you were the main reason to keep the brand alive. So you played one playoff game in the time that you were with the Giants. You're not Eli Manning, you're not Phil Simms, you're not Harry Carson, you're not Michael Strahan, you're not O.C. Umenyiora, you're not Justin Tuck, you're definitely not LT. So what the hell are you talking about? Keeping the brand alive? Hell, Hakeem Nicks has has not a good enough player as you were, was not as good a player as you were, but he accomplished more in the time that he was here. He has a championship ring. Tyreke Hill, who's just a blip on the radar as far as talent-wise as you. He accomplished more. He had one of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history. What? You make one catch with your bare hand on Sunday Night Football? You think that established the Giant brand? No. When you're doing more losing than winning during that time, that's not establishing the brand. The brand was already established before you got there, pal. And, the people will say, there were a lot of people that were knocking Eli Manning and his play. Yeah, he didn't play well a lot over the 6 years that Odell Beckham was here. But at the same time, when you have a diva wide receiver like this who's demanding the ball on every play and getting frustrated when he's not getting the ball, that can create some chaos. That can create some turmoil, in your offense. And, you read through some of these comments, you're like, Odell, is there even a working brain in your head? He even goes on when he's talking about they have been talking about trading me in the past, and saying when asked who he was referring to, he singled out the general manager Dave Gettleman. He went on to say that he has respect for John Mara, but none for Gettleman or Pat Shermer, even going as far as saying when the coach texts him, oh yeah, I heard the news. Yeah, you heard the news? And Odell said, yeah, because it happened because of you. Because he didn't want to deal with the headache anymore of you trying to force your offensive beliefs down his throats. You thought that team is spelled M-E rather than and spelled with an I rather than T-E-A-M. All right? Odell, you were as big a problem here as anything that went on these last 6 years. I mean, there are times you want to defend Odell Beckham and you think he gets too much criticism. Like I mentioned the story earlier this offseason. There's a reporter that covers the Giants for the NFL Network named Kim Jones, who had an unfortunate health issue late last season. Now, thankfully, she was able to overcome that, survived the emergency health issue, and got back to work. And when she returned to NFL Network, one of the first players to reach out to her, make sure she was okay, and was glad to hear back from her, was Odell Beckham. So you give him credit there. But there's far too many of these stupid, off-the-field, nonsensical things that make you want to hate Odell Beckham rather than praise him for the good that he can do, whether it be other things like that, or how good he is with fans and always giving his time out for fans. But then when he does crap like this, it just makes you shake your head and say, oh, this guy will never learn. This guy's full of himself. He's all about himself and marketing himself rather than putting the Giants in or whatever team he's playing for in the best position to win. And, Baker Mayfield speaking so highly of him, saying, oh, he's here to work, that he's surrounded by people who love him. Is he going to be saying that same thing in mid-October, if the Browns at that time are, say, 2-4, get off to a bad start, Jarvis Landry's getting more of the targets, and then Odell's whining and complaining through his media junkies that, hey, I should be getting the ball more. I'm not the reason that we're losing. The reason we're losing is because I'm not getting it enough. And everyone wants to hype up this Browns team, and you look at all the young talent that they've accumulated over the years, and you can understand why, on paper, people could be so high on this team. But it's a roster that's ready to blow up at a split second. Yes, he's got what he calls his big brother Jarvis Landry there as his teammate now. But is he going to be supportive for his success? He wasn't. It didn't seem at times he was supportive of his teammates' success when he was with the New York Giants. Are him and Baker Mayfield gonna be able to work together? You've got other combustible elements on this defense. A rookie head coach. Oh, and let's not forget they brought in Kareem Hunt during this offseason. So this is a team that, while on paper it could skyrocket up, in general, all the ingredients are there to implode. And, in this area, we have two teams, the Jets and the Giants. Yes, 2 hours away is the Philadelphia Eagles, and 200 miles to the north of MetLife Stadium is the Buffalo Bills. But for the tri-state area's purpose, their main two teams are the Jets and the Giants. Well, now, both sides have essentially adopted the Cleveland Browns as the third team to this area. The Jets, because they played the Browns in Week 2 on Monday Night Football and want to get a little bit of revenge for the loss on Thursday Night Football last year, especially when you would have thought that it was a Cleveland Browns home broadcast there on the NFL Network. And now the Giant fans, with the fact that Odell Beckham has been traded away and continues to talk trash about their organization, questioning the loyalty of the fan base and continuing to rip the organization, whether it be general manager, head coach, and especially the quarterback. So, Cleveland Browns, you better go out there and win this year. It's kind of a boom or bust year for you, because if it's a bust, if things fall apart and you're the same old Cleveland Browns, there's going to be even more egg on your face than usual, because you brought in a lot of talented players, but you never shut the hell up along the way. And every team is going to be putting your quotes, putting your logo on the bulletin board for when they're set to play you, and they're going to want to jam their fists right down your throat. So you better back up all the big talk if you hope to avoid the criticism that we've seen many trash-talking teams do before you. All right, a lot left to get to over the next 45 minutes or so here. I'll mix in some more NFL along the way with maybe some talk about the Jets. Another player getting very lucky when it comes to the NFL this last week, and talk when it comes to training camp getting started this coming week, as well as there are other people making some dumb comments off the field. Get to those, as well as, of course, main thing on my mind this week is baseball, 9 days away from the trade deadline, so mixing some thoughts there, as well as why it never pays off to be a fan of one team but root for another. I'll get to that in a few minutes. So plenty to get to over the remainder of the program here. Whatever you're doing on this gorgeous Monday afternoon. Sit back, relax, help put your feet up on the table if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
Our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now.
Welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. Glad you could be joining me on this Monday afternoon. Remember, tell your friends about this podcast. Tell them about where they can find it each and every single week through either Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You know, you can find it, of course, on Facebook, facebook.com/Keeping It Sports with M3, the main home for this podcast. Go there, click the like button. You don't have to be my friend on Facebook, just trying to gain as many followers and build up a following for this podcast as large as it can possibly be. You can also follow the podcast and find the link to this on Twitter at Keeping It Sports. Fortunately, Twitter doesn't allow you more than 15 characters for a username, so I had to keep it to just at Keeping It Sports. You can also find the live edition or the video edition of the podcast, if you feel like seeing me behind the mic, on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is entitled Keeping It Sports with M3. You can watch it live if you're a follower on Facebook through either the Keeping It Sports with M3 Facebook page or on my own personal account. As I said, you do not have to be my friend on Facebook. That's not what I'm looking for. Just trying to build the following as big as possible, because hey, the more of an audience you build of outsiders, you never know who could be listening out there and who could like what you say. And at any time you hear anything that you want to debate me on this podcast, be more than welcome to send me comments to either the Twitter account at Keeping It Sports or on Facebook.com/Keeping It Sports with M3. In the coming weeks, I may also, but undecided on this, we do have a phone line here that I may start to use, and at my own risk, allow people to call in and make their own questions, comments, thoughts, opinions, part of the podcast. So still unsure if we're going to do that, but it'll be something to pay attention to. Now, we're just talking about Odell Beckham and how it's a clear example how a star can fade very quickly. How, at one moment you can be the toast of the town. And when you're the toast of the town in a big city like New York, LA, Boston, Chicago, maybe even to a lesser extent somewhere like Miami, you can essentially have your run of the mill. When you win there, you're allowed to get away with certain things off the field, certain legal things, should I say, and avoid criticism as much as possible. So, Derek Jeter, as classy an individual, always said the right thing, but he was always out partying at night, but was allowed to get away with that because the Yankees were winning championships, and he was always a clutch performer in those situations. When Alex Rodriguez would do that in the early part of his tenure with the Yankees, he got ripped and criticized because there were times he didn't come up in the clutch. Or, Eli Manning, he never gets criticized for a thing he does because A, he's kind of a boring personality, and B, he has two of the greatest wins in the history of the franchise, one including beating the undefeated New England Patriots in a Super Bowl and ending their perfect season. And you could go on and on from there. But at times, there are those who want to be stars before they actually accomplish something. In this generation that we have, the millennial generation, a lot of people want to become superstars, want to become, beloved for their off-the-field stuff before they even accomplish anything on the field. Beckham is one case. He was talking about, they want to see me make the plays, and felt that he was the reason they were still on primetime games just because of that one catch against the Dallas Cowboys, when he's clearly wrong in that. It's the New York Giants. They're still one of the more popular franchises in the NFL. You have a case like Kristaps Porzingis, who never even only played one full season with the New York Knicks, dealt with injuries in his second 2 years with the Knicks, and turned into a guy that was full of himself before truly accomplishing something. You hope that he gets back to full health with the Mavericks. If not, they're going to look pretty stupid for giving him a 5-year, $158 million contract. Well, there was a third guy during that time, when you had Odell grabbing the headlines in football. You had Porzingis, the unicorn in the NBA. That third guy is Matt Harvey. That third person who, he was a star. He was a rock star. He was a phenomenon when he first came upon the scenes with the Mets. In 2013, they referred to it as Harvey Day. Yeah, he didn't get a lot of victories on his win-loss column. Only had 9 victories and 26 starts that year. But man, when he took the mound, he was something special to watch. He was something that the Met fans had not seen since the days of Tom Seaver. A homegrown pitcher that was just a dominating force already as a rookie, coming out there saying, this is our guy. Remember, he started the All-Star game that year. He finished 4th in the Cy Young race in his first full year in the big leagues. He was awesome. Then the injuries started cropping in. He had Tommy John surgery, missed all of 2014, comes back in 2015, and he was great. He pitched well. But you started to deal with some of the problems that come along with Matt Harvey. And you could have seen it coming, like at the aforementioned All-Star break in 2013, when he did the story in GQ, what a surprise, and talked about how he wanted to be like Derek Jeter. He wanted to make $200 million and date supermodels. And he was essentially living the rock star mentality, some of it on the budget of his agent, Scott Boras. But 2015, it all changed. And it seemingly has all changed ever since that one moment. And I'm not talking about the Subway Series game in April where he wanted to come back and pitch the 9th inning against the Yankees with an 8-1 lead. No, we're talking about Game 5 of the 2015 World Series, when he made a spectacle of it, coming back out there to pitch the 9th inning of a 2-0 lead against the Kansas City Royals. A move that at the time I personally agreed with. I'm in the minority here. I thought it was a good move sticking with him. It turned out to be a mistake because Terry Collins stuck with him one batter too long, and Jeurys Familia came in and blew the save. We all know how that wound up. But after that, the injuries started to roll in. Whether it be the thoracic outlet syndrome causing him problems in 2016. 2017, he still dealt with more injury issues and only made 19 appearances that year, pitching to a 6 ERA. It got so bad that, remember, early last year, he was first moved to the bullpen and then DFA'd by the Mets before being traded to the Anaheim or to the Cincinnati Reds. This past offseason, the Anaheim Angels decided to take a chance on him, signed him to a 1-year, $11 million contract. And guess what? He didn't even make it through year 1 with the Anaheim Angels. He got hurt, had some injury issues. I believe it was an oblique problem. And then after only 2 starts back off the injury list, the Angels decided they had enough and DFA'd him last Thursday before giving him his unconditional release yesterday. I mean, it's just amazing to think about how far this guy has fallen. Because it was talked about for years, that big free agent class that was coming up in at the end of the 2018 season. You talk about the likes of Manny Machado. You talk about Bryce Harper. And there's been some unfortunate scenarios that took players out of the mix there. The biggest being Jose Fernandez, who unfortunately his poor decision-making cost him his own life on that fateful night in September of 2016. But then you have a case like Matt Harvey, who injuries mixed with poor attitude cost him what should have been stardom, cost him from making that big contract. And now you wonder, with the way he's pitched, is anyone going to take a chance on this guy? Is anyone going to give him a shot? Because he was okay with the Reds last year, pitched to about 4 ERA, and that's an accomplishment seemingly pitching in that bandbox of a ballpark there in Cincinnati, Ohio. But the way he pitched for the Anaheim Angels in the American League, where you have a designated hitter, pitching to a 7 ERA, and the fact that he still had about $4 or $5 million due to him for the rest of this year. The Angels didn't even try him out of the bullpen, didn't even try and fix him. They just said, let's cut our losses now and get rid of him. It shows you how far this guy, his star, has fallen, how much the stock has fallen in Matt Harvey in just the last 3 years alone. And you wonder, I don't know, is there even a career for him to be had anymore? Is there even a place for him in Major League Baseball? Is someone going to take that chance? Because you got to think, at this point, the guy's been humbled. After all the big talk he had early on, now to be the equivalent to batting practice, be the equivalent of a pitching machine in BP, that you wonder, does anyone take a chance on a now humbled but broken Matt Harvey? And this is another example to any young star in any walk of life, any one of these sports, in any one of these big markets. Use this as the tale that, it can all dissipate on you like that. So you got to stay on your game and at the same time remain humble about doing that. And we think we've seen that in Aaron Judge. In the Mets case, we're seeing that with Jacob deGrom and Pete Alonso. Hell, Jacob deGrom has been the smart one. He's stuck with staying away from the nickname, whether it be the Dark Knight or Thor or any of that garbage. He's just been like, hey, just give me the ball. I want to go out there and pitch. I don't care about any of that other nonsense. And all he wants is to go out there, pitch games for the Mets, and maybe actually, get some wins in the mix there. I mean, you look at poor Jacob deGrom. He's going to be thinking to himself at times, do my teammates hate me? Especially when you look that he's had 159 career starts, and 72 times he's given up 1 run or less. He only has 60 career wins. And hell, since the beginning of last year, the Mets have only won 20 of the 52 starts he's made, and he has an ERA of 2.18 in that time. But, you look at, Judge, as I said, deGrom and Alonso. You look at, young, hopeful stars with the Rangers and Devils in Capel Kako and Hughes. You look at the Jets and what they're hoping is their future star in Sam Darnold. You look at how Eli Manning has handled his success and has handled his failure. That is one of the great examples, success failure stories in not just this area, but in all of professional sports. And all he's done is provide two of the greatest wins of all time, but seemingly gets disrespected all the time by the outside media and by fans who are just ready to give it up and throw it away. So, I guess my main message to all these young stars who are coming up, whether it be, as I mentioned, Sam Darnold, whether it be Hughes and Kako, whether it be, you talk about Gleyber Torres, you talk about Pete Alonso, guys who are still young in their careers. You look at with the Knicks, R.J. Barrett. Yeah, it's good to have success early, but remain humble in doing it, and remain consistent in doing it. Because if you're not, it can all just fall apart that quickly. Harvey has shown that nothing is guaranteed in life or professional sports. All right, going to take another break here. Come back on the other side. We'll talk about buyers and sellers in the free agent market, why it does not pay to be a fraud sports fan at times, as well as we got to relive what is one of the great rants in the history of professional sports. Continue keeping the sports on M3.
Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
That was Yankee manager Aaron Boone during the second inning of last Thursday's doubleheader between the Tampa Rays and the New York Yankees. And I am so thankful for Aaron Boone, not just as a Yankee fan and the work that he's done this year as their manager, guiding them to 30 games over 500 and all of the injuries that they've battled through. But the fact that A, he goes out there and defends his players, and B, we get that within, split time. I mean, it was 20 minutes after this rant happened against rookie umpire Brandon Miller that this was available via Twitter. Drawing a blank right now on who it was exactly that got this audio. It was provided. It's provided to, the guys who have the MLB.com package who are subscribers to that. You can get the audio from this because there's a microphone right behind home plate. You couldn't hear this as well on the Yes broadcast or on the Tampa broadcast. And for anyone that I offended by playing the uncensored version, I do actually apologize. That you hear me, use crap or stuff like that, words like that occasionally, but I don't like to drop the F-bomb on this. I do like to keep it professional. I will say someone's playing like crap, someone's having a shitty day, things like that, but I don't want to take it to that extra level. But I felt the need to play this because this is one of the great rants ever. I mean, everyone is going to take the part about, him calling the team bleeping savages. And that in itself is a funny line. I'm sure there's been hundreds of t-shirts already created on that, and I'll be looking to get one in the near future. But the underrated part is how condescending he is, and that I feel bad for you when he's telling them, you're having a bleep start to this game. I feel bad for you, but you got to tighten this bleep up right now. It's just amazing. And what's great about it, as I said, we got this within 20 minutes of it happening. It wasn't like, with Terry Collins when he went out there and was arguing on behalf of Noah Syndergaard throwing behind Chase Utley back in, 2016, 2017, somewhere along those lines. It wasn't, a year and a half we had to wait for that, as great as that was. It was instantaneously. And I hope we get more of that, because I'm sure there are funny things that these managers say all the time. I'm sure that you'll hear a manager say, demanding that an umpire throw him out of the game just to fire the team up. And it had to fire the Yankees up a little bit there. First game of a doubleheader. They're about to play close to 7 hours of baseball. They're trailing early on, and let's face it, the umpiring that day and in that series in general was awful. But for him to go out there and defend his player like that, you have to really appreciate that. Now, if you're a Yankee fan, the one thing you have on your mind right now is what's going to happen in the next 9 days. And I don't mean, standings-wise. I don't mean what's going to happen as far as playoff races, because as we all know, nothing is guaranteed in this life. Nothing you could say is a sure thing. But if you're a fan of the team, you've got to feel pretty confident in their chances at not just making the postseason, but winning the American League East for the first time in 7 years. What was it, 2012? The last time that they won the division? Because you sit here right now on this Monday afternoon, July 22nd, 2019, with the Yankees 9 games ahead of the Tampa Rays, 11 games up in the loss column, and 11 games ahead of the Red Sox, 12 up in the loss column. And yeah, you're going to be playing the Red Sox a lot coming up. You've got 12 games remaining with them on the schedule, but you're pretty much done with the Rays. They have a 2-game set at the end of September, but that's it. You don't see the Rays anymore, and the Yankees dominated the Rays for the most part this season. They're 11-5 they've gone against them, and now you've got a schedule coming up that It's difficult, to be fair. 3 games in Minnesota before 4 at Boston, before finally having an off day next Monday, prior to welcoming the Arizona Diamondbacks in for a quick 2-game set, before you got to play the Red Sox again for 4 games. So you got, of your next 13 games, 8 of them are against the Boston Red Sox. So you become fairly familiar with the Red Sox in the next 2 weeks if you haven't been paying attention to what they've been doing this year in what's been a down year for Chris Sale, a bad year for Rick Porcello, an up and down year for David Price, a slow start to the year for Mookie Betts, and pretty much the only ones that are performing to the back of the baseball card are JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts, with them getting a phenomenal year out of Rafael Devers, finally starting to live up to all this hype and potential that we've always heard about, now at still just the young age of 22 years old. So you'll become more familiar with the Red Sox. But your main concern with the Yankees right now is who in the next 9 days are they going to acquire to join this team? Who are they going to add to this team for that late season, not just playoff push, but to start games for them in October? Because you look at this starting rotation right now, and although some guys have performed very well, like Masahiro Tanaka, outside of the London game and outside of the 6th inning on Saturday afternoon, Tanaka's lived up to what he's always been, a quality starting pitcher and a guy that you don't worry about so much in the regular season, and in the postseason, he's shown the ability to take his game to another level. But the rest of the rotation, you've got a now 39-year-old CC Sabathia, who, as much as Yankee fans, including myself, all love CC, I don't know if you can count on him to start postseason games. J. Happ, who has had a bad year. James Paxton, who's had an up and down year after a couple good starts in a row. He pitched like crap yesterday. And then Domingo Germán, who's actually probably been the Yankees' best starter outside of the multi-miss due to a hip injury. But we all know he's going to be running up against an innings limit. And as I've said before, those innings in the postseason matter. It's not like a video game where you could just hit the reset button and it's like, oh, these don't count as far as an innings total. It's a human body. That kind of stuff matters. So you need someone to go with the Masahiro Tanaka in that rotation, because let's face it, you can have Tanaka match up against either Verlander or Cole. And I mentioned the Astros because, let's face it, these two teams in all likelihood are on a collision course for the American League Championship Series once again this year. In all likelihood, you will have either the Yankees hosting the Astros or the Astros hosting the Yankees. Yankees have a 3-game lead in the loss column of the Astros for the best record in the American League right now, and have a lead of 1 over the Dodgers in the loss column right now when it comes to best record overall. So your main concern is October. How do we get this team ready for October? And the biggest need is a starting pitcher. Problem is, who's those starting pitchers that are available? Who's the starting pitchers that are the difference makers out there that can take this team to that level where, as I said before, nothing's guaranteed. Nothing in life is ever a guarantee. But that you can feel confident in handing them the ball late October in the American League Championship Series, go up against a Garrett Cole or a Justin Verlander. Or hand them the ball if you make it to the World Series and go up against the likes of whether it's the Cubs and whether they're throwing John Lester or Cole Hamels at you, or you're playing the Dodgers and they're throwing either Kershaw, Buehler, or Ryu at you. Who do you have confidence in, or who can you get that you can have confidence in? Because, as we know, Luis Severino is out and on his way back from injury, But until he actually takes the mound for a rehab appearance and gets back to the major leagues, you essentially have to act like he doesn't exist. And even so, who's to say he doesn't have a setback? And we've seen the misfortunes he's had in the postseason each of the last 2 years. Would it be the wild card game against the Twins, or it be last year's Game 3 against the Boston Red Sox? Who can you get that you have confidence in? Who's available? Because let's look at the races right now. People talked about Trevor Bauer and the Indians possibly being a seller. Right now, the Cleveland Indians, if the playoffs begin today, they'd be hosting the American League wildcard game. They've gotten on a roll here since the start of June. They've won 7 of their last 10 and had either the first or second best record in the American League since the beginning of June. They're now just a mere 3 games back in the loss column of the Minnesota Twins, and the Twins are starting to take on water here. The pressure is starting to mount on this young pitching staff. Suddenly, if you can count on Trevor Bauer being available as much anymore, especially if the Yankees go into Minnesota starting tonight and wipe the floor of the Twins as they seemingly usually do. I mean, the Twins, every time they see an NY logo, whether it be the Yankees or now the Mets last week, they seemingly crumble down and fall apart. So, Cleveland may not be an option for you anymore. Texas Rangers, I keep hearing about all these rumors when it comes to possibly Mike Minor being available, but Mike Minor's number 3 or 4 starter. That doesn't do it. I mean, the guy's having a career year. He's been pretty much a journeyman prior to that. You look at throughout the rest of the American League, there's been all the talk about Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman, good pitcher, but a number 2 or 3 starter is not that difference maker that you look for. And the Nationals, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, they're in the postseason race. They're probably going to make it as, at the very minimum, a wild card. So Max Scherzer is not available. There's no one that you would look at on the Diamondbacks, Rockies, Pirates that be available. And please, let's stop with this narrative of the Yankees and the Mets making a trade. Please, it's getting obnoxious at this point. It's becoming attention-seeking if you know what I mean when it comes to the New York media. The Mets are not going to trade Noah Syndergaard to the Yankees, not going to trade Zach Wheeler to the Yankees. Their ownership will never allow it. And if you're a Yankee fan, the only pitcher on that staff you would ever have any confident interest in is Jacob deGrom, and we all know he's not available. They didn't give him a 5-year, $135 million contract back in April just to trade him at the trade deadline in the middle of year 1. And what we thought all along was the guy for the Yankees to go get is Madison Bumgarner. Even though he's on the Yankees are on his no-trade list amongst, 8 or 9 teams that he can refuse to trade to. All of them are seemingly playoff contenders. All of them are seemingly in pennant races. But that's just so that he gains some leverage, hoping that maybe that team gives him a contract extension of, say, 4 years for $100 million, something like that. Somewhere in the neighborhood of an average annual salary of higher than what Patrick Corbin got last offseason from the Washington Nationals. But now that's not looking like a possibility anymore. I know there's been reports that, there's still going to be sellers, but the San Francisco Giants have now won 15 of their last 18 games. When just a mere 3 weeks ago, this team was looking dead in the water. This team was at 35-47. They've now won 15 of their last 18 games, and they're only 2.5 games back, 2 games back in the loss column of the second wild card, and a second wild card that the Milwaukee Brewers don't look as strong as they did a couple of weeks ago anymore now. And it being Bruce Bochy's final year, maybe that front office decides to say, all right, instead of taking the long-term approach we were originally going to have at the beginning of this month, let's try and go out there and win one more time in Bochy's last year. Send him out the right way. Who knows? We've seen plenty of teams get hot at the right time. Hell, we won the wild card in 2014 and ran that all the way to winning the World Series, mostly on the back of Madison Bumgarner, putting together one of the greatest postseason runs we've ever seen. And, you know, I mentioned before how it doesn't pay to be a fraud fan. Here's what I meant by that. I've always ripped certain people in my life who try to pull this whole New York sports fan. I root for both the Yankees and Mets. I root for both the Giants and Jets. And I've told them, no, it doesn't work out like that. You don't get to root for both. You don't get to do that. Pick one. That makes you a fraud fan. That makes you someone who's trying to play both sides of the argument. It's like, it's almost like in the world of politics, throw this in here, when you have a politician who tries to claim independent. It's like, no, pick a side of the aisle. That's why no one votes for you, because you don't have a strong opinion either way. You're trying to win both sides of an argument. So me believing in that theory, I had to throw it out the window this past weekend and root for the New York Mets to try and defeat the San Francisco Giants during their 4-game series in San Francisco. And what does it get me? It gets me watching them blow a 16-inning game against the Giants, in which they take a 2-1 lead in the top half after a Pete Alonso home run. And you watch some young relief pitcher give up 2 runs before you can even blink an eye at about 2:30 in the morning East Coast time. Friday night, you have to see the Dom Smith drop a pop-up in left field that allows for a walk-off in the 10th inning. And then last night, Carl Yastrzemski's grandson, Mike Yastrzemski, hits a walk-off home run off of Bob Gazelman to put the Giants back at the 500 mark at 50-50. That right there is the greatest example, folks, of never be a fraud. When you need someone to win for you, they will always let you down. That's why, as a Yankee fan, I don't root against the Mets unless they're playing the Yankees in the Subway Series. I don't sit there and actively wish bad on them. At the same time, I won't sit there and root for them. I just sit there and view them as an unbiased spectator and form a reasonable opinion on them based off what I see on a night in, night out basis. But the fact that I, for 1 second, could trust them, thinking that, they're going to go out there and win a couple games in San Francisco and end this winning streak by the Giants after, going and bludgeoning the Twins for a couple days. But, did they ever, once again, prove to me that they're the same old Mets and why I shouldn't have had any faith in them and any trust in them? The egg was on me for throwing my theory out the window. But the point remains, 9 days from now, who do you trust the Yankees to get? And who do you want them to get? Who's the guy that can put them over the top? Because they're going to get somebody. But is that somebody good enough? And please, I don't want to hear any more about Robbie Ray. Yeah, I understand he's 26 years old, left-hander, third in the National League in strikeouts. The guy's got a 4 ERA in the National League. I mean, can we calm it down here a bit on acting like this is some diamond in the rough, that this is a guy that, he hasn't filled out his potential. And you hear this all the time. These pitching coaches say, once we get him in our program, I can fix him. Well, you thought that with Sonny Gray. You thought that with James Paxton. Let's see. You thought that with Nate Eovaldi. You thought that with Michael Pineda. You realize now, here in 2019, it has been 25 years since the Yankees have traded for an ace-level pitcher at the trade deadline. That was David Cone. 24 years. David Cone at the trade deadline of 1995. That shortened 144 game season, first year of the American League wildcard. They got him as a hired gun and then gave him a 5-year contract extension on that. Since then, you've seen them trade for the likes of Jeff Weaver, Danny Nagel, Sean Chacon, Corey Lytle, God rest his soul. You've seen the likes of Jay Happ, Sonny Gray, who else? Jaime Garcia. There's been a lot of those kind of guys mixed in here. None of the top of the staff ace-level pitchers. More of your rank and file. We can fix these guys and get them to being top-level pitchers kind of guys. I mean, you thought about 10 years ago they were going to trade for Cliff Lee, but that deal fell apart at the final hour, at the final minute. So, it's about time they go out there and they make that move. Because believe it or not, folks, and I know I'm going to seem like a whiny, complaining Yankee fan in saying this, it has been 10 years since the Yankees have won the World Series. 10 years. I mean, at some point, they've got to get back to being the New York Yankees. They got to start acting like the Yankees. I'm not saying you got to clear out your entire farm system, but as we've seen teams, whether it be in the NBA who stockpile draft picks, or in the NFL, the Browns for years, they built that army of draft picks. At some point, you got to push your chips to the middle of the table. There is, in baseball, there's not just a 25-man roster, but you have a 40-man roster. 15 guys that you can protect against that Rule 5 draft or protect from people claiming on waivers. And you can't keep everybody forever due to the fact that you have the 40-man roster. Guys only have 3 minor league options. So eventually, you've got to be willing to push some of these chips in the middle of the table. You've got to be willing to do that 4 prospects for 1 big-time ace. And I'm not talking about going and getting, Randy Johnson when he's 41 years old. I'm talking about finding that stud, that guy that's a difference maker. And unfortunately, I don't think he exists. And, we may have to deal, I'm just warning y'all, with another Jay Happ, Sonny Gray, Jeff Weaver, Danny Nagel, Sean Chacon type of situation here when it comes to the July 31st trade deadline. Gonna take one more break, come back on the other side, close things out for Keeping It Sports with M3.
School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
The media business has changed a lot since we got indoors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere, on air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools. Redefining training in radio, TV, and e-media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Welcome back to Keeping Sports with M3. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday afternoon. Once again, glad that any of you can join me this week, whether you're listening to the podcast version or watching it via YouTube. I always appreciate all the support. Even I appreciate the support we got from one Mr. LeBron James earlier in the hour, giving me one of the great audio clips of all time here when he reaffirmed his love for what else? Nothing but Taco Tuesday. No, it's not, LeBron. That is actually tomorrow. But once again, I always appreciate your contributions to the show. Hopefully, you'll be giving me something to talk about this coming October when the NBA season gets started again. But as I said earlier, NFL became more of a attention maker. Hell, even college football got some run in the news mill over this last week when you had certain comments being made by these college coaches. I know a lot of these conferences had their media days last week, especially Big 12 and the Big 10. You had one was by Lincoln Riley and his comments on Jaylen Hurts, the former Alabama quarterback who transferred to Oklahoma this past offseason after the fact that he's been essentially replaced by Tua Tagovailoa. His comments on Jaylen Hurts saying he has to win the job. And I understand that coaches say that all the time. They want to make their guy earn it, want to give them motivation. But let's face it, you have a redshirt freshman quarterback, you have another young quarterback there, both guys who have a lot of talent. But you wouldn't agree to have Jalen Hurts transfer there if he's not going to be the starter day one. This is not some guy that just walked off the street. This is a guy that led a team to a national championship, was bad in the first half and got replaced by someone who's better. But Jalen Hurts can play. We've seen that each of the last 2 years. Hell, even when Alabama was still relatively close to their opponents last year, even when the game was just 21-0 in the first half, you saw Nick Saban giving Jalen Hurts some run there, giving Tua a series or two off there. This guy can play. This guy can go. So, no, he's not going to go there if he thinks he's going to be the backup to one of these young kids. And he's not just going to come in there and what's the term, slack off or act like everything is a guarantee. He's going to come in there and work hard, but he knows, he has to know that while his coach is saying one thing publicly, he knows privately he's going to be getting the job. Now, the comment that I really could not stand is by Jim Harbaugh, who was asked about Urban Meyer. Remember, Urban Meyer has once again retired this past offseason due to some health concerns, and that leaves Jim Harbaugh, the big boy in town when it comes to the Big Ten. He made some comments at Media Day when he said Urban Meyer's had a winning record, really phenomenal record everywhere he's been, but also controversy follows him everywhere. And yes, while that is true, he's had a lot of controversy following him around, especially at both Florida and Ohio State, things that have led to him getting suspended by the program or by NCAA protocol. When you're Jim Harbaugh, you have to shut your mouth. You can't bring up someone else's off-the-field controversies or off-the-field problems, especially when it's a guy that since the moment you got to Michigan, you're talking big, you're talking about how you're going to bring Michigan back to greatness. You're the prize son coming home, hoping to lead Michigan to championship glory. But ever since you got back to Michigan as their head coach, you've had Ohio State as a roadblock. And anyone out there want to take a guess how many times that Michigan has beaten Ohio State under Jim Harbaugh? Anyone? That's right. The Big Donut. Zippo. Zero. Nada. Never. Did not beat Urban Meyer one time. Now, there is no one coming into the college football season with more pressure on them. No player, coach, no one anywhere in the college football playoff landscape with more pressure on them than Jim Harbaugh. You never could beat Urban Meyer. Now it's your opportunity. It's your chance to take control of this conference and run with it. Let's see if you're going to live up to that. Couple quick things in the NFL before I go. Number one, I always laugh every year at this time when we're getting close and close to Madden the video game coming out, and usually within a couple of weeks of the game coming out, ratings for certain players at top positions, whether it be quarterback, running back, wide receiver, somewhere along the defensive end, the top players, the cream of the crop, their ratings will start leaking out. And you will have anybody who's not rated not as a 95 plus come out and be bitching, moaning, whining, crying, complaining about their ratings. You saw Keenan Allen last week saying, I'm boycotting Madden the video game until they raise my speed up or they raise my acceleration up from 79. Saying that, I should be up in the 90s on that. I mean, hey, your rating is affected by how you're going to play on the field. So you just got to live with that. Now, as far as on the field play, there are two people that I'm surprised that are going to be on the field when games start. One I mentioned last week with Ezekiel Elliott. Surprised that he didn't get more of a suspension or any punishment from the NFL for his off-the-field misconduct back in May. An incident where he didn't get arrested, but there was video evidence there that you couldn't have blamed the league if they suspended him, and he's got to be on thin ice. The same goes for Tyreke Hill, who, as you know, all off-season long, I've been very harsh on for correct reasons, whether it be the reports of his 3-year-old son having a broken arm and it seeming like the paper trail all led to him, or the audio clip coming out of him speaking to his fiance, not just being verbally threatening to their child, but also be verbally threatening toward her. Well, the NFL decided that they didn't have enough evidence through all the police investigation to give him any sort of punishment. So he will not be suspended for this, but they're keeping the case open for in case any future evidence comes out. Another case of a guy very, very fortunate, because by all justifications, just hearing that audio alone from back in, mid-April, you couldn't have blamed the league if they suspended them. And it's becoming more and more clear here now that unless we can see it, unless we have visual proof of it, the league's not going to do anything. I mean, hell, remember a couple of years ago, an arbitrator said to the league that I don't think Zeke Elliott should be suspended for his domestic abuse allegations, and he got suspended anyway. And all of this, not that I want to rank the level of severity when it comes to this, because any domestic disputing, verbal assault, physical assault is wrong. It's awful. Those people, anyone who commits that should be is a disgusting human being and shouldn't be allowed the privilege of playing the sport. But that audio clip alone was enough to hand him out a 8-game suspension at the very minimum, and no one would have blinked an eye, no one would have shuddered. But no, Tyreke Hill, you hope that this is a wake-up call for him now. I mean, he came into the league with a bad rap sheet. Now he has this on. One more off-the-field incident, that could be done for him. I mean, the Chiefs, for some reason, are still sticking by him, even after likely seeing all of any evidence and hearing this audio clip. They're not even going to inflict their own kind of punishment toward him. You hope that somewhere along the line there's some wake-up call and that the NFL is not making a mistake. Because if they give him this extra chance and he blows it again, there's going to be a lot of people coming at them saying, wait, why didn't you punish him the first or second time on this? Why is it now, only after visual evidence or something else even worse happens, that you're now deciding to lay down the hammer on him? So there's a lot of people in the front offices that are saying a prayer right now, hoping they're making the right decision. And hopefully, Tyreke Hill realizes how fortunate he is that not only is he still with the Chiefs, a team that looks like they can go places this year, but he's still given the privilege of playing in the NFL. And that, my friends, is Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, July 22nd, 2019. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be back next week when we are just 48 hours away from Major League Baseball's trade deadline, in which time I believe by next Monday there will be some sort of blockbuster trade being made. Until then, enjoy the rest of your night. Stay safe, everyone, and I'll talk to you again next Monday afternoon. Peace.